Coming to you from the Strings and Things studio, this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club. This time we did John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, which is a book that I put into the pot.
It's Anne's fault we did this.
It is.
I liked it. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't regret reading it.
I don't regret reading it. No.
Yeah, and it definitely felt like school. It was not the light, interesting, what am I finding reading that we've done in the last
I must be a nerd. I totally loved this.
I enjoyed it.
But I am a history nerd. I love all things. And I remember this. Okay, I'll wait till it's my turn.
You remember this book from 1939?
I remember studying this time period twice as a homeschool mom with my kids.
So, and it brought interesting memories for me back of, this was the time when I was trying to sabotage my grades so I can change schools. And so I phoned it in. I purposefully did not read this book. So that's why I kept getting confused.
I'm sorry, I don't understand those words.
I know. I purposefully sabotaged my grades.
What?
Because then...
That was my lifeline.
Oh, I loved
school. Was my lifeline.
But I hated where I was going. I had made a mistake in choosing the high school that all of my classmates went to instead of something local. And my mom wouldn't let me change. So the only way I saw out was to sabotage my quarter grades so she would feel like she had to let me change.
And did it work?
Yeah. Oh. I went to the high school I wanted to go to. And the hard feelings dissipated eventually.
And was it worth it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I made all my lifelong friends. I mean, yeah, it was the best thing that could have happened for me at that time. And it turns out my big brother, who's 10 years older than me, did exactly the same thing at exactly the same school.
Like we talked about this on another podcast.
Go to that school. So, yeah.
So maybe that's why it worked, because your mom had already experienced this with
she
one
knew
child.
That is the joy of being a middle, is that your parents are a little broken down already. So they know the fights that are worth having. Yeah. She was really mad about it, but it was...
she knew exactly what you were doing?
Yeah, I didn't know my brother had done this same thing, though. It's not like we collaborated. He's like, Anne, this is how you get mom.
This is how you get out of it.
I would feel pretty... she hates... she is the one I learned the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And so she got fooled by the same scam.
That would make her mad, yeah.
And
especially a mom, yeah.
She didn't expect you to do that.
I have done lots of things that changed the path of my life that she didn't expect from me. She really should have just named me the Spanish Inquisition. What a thing to name a child.
You're making that up.
She should have.
Oh,
nobody expects
the Spanish
Inquisition.
That would be a great name.
Monty Python friends. No.
And now it's time for the comfy chair.
So back to Grapes of Wrath. It also took me right back to school, and that's why I kept asking Kaity and Karin if they had been to the barn yet. If they were at the barn scene yet.
Yeah, and I didn't know what you were talking about.
I thought it happened in the middle.
Like at the beginning of the book or the end of the book you're referring to?
I thought that the ending, chapter 30,
was in the middle of the book.
The last thing that happened.
Because you said that and I was like, I think that's the last scene. I don't know why I'm not there yet. I haven't finished it.
It was not my code for... Have you finished
the book yet? No.
It was...
That was just a point that you remembered.
I do remember this shocking scene at the end of the book, but I didn't remember that it was the end of the book.
You know, somewhere in there.
Part of my thoughts were I couldn't remember what happened after that.
Because there's nothing to that. You're like, okay.
Well, I don't remember much of this book, but man, it made an impression on me.
I think this was a book that I was supposed to read, but I don't think I did. Well, I didn't read any of the things I was supposed to do.
Teacher, I'll take a 0.
Yeah, I did not.
You didn't have any nefarious plans?
No, I was just lazy.
Okay, so in the tradition we've set, I have a synopsis. This, I wonder, Lit Lovers, is that where you've also gotten things?
I don't remember where I've gotten things.
This was the only set of book club questions, if you Google book club questions, that came from any source. So it's like somebody made up these questions, and then everyone else has cut and pasted
Sounds like,
them.
Thank God I don't have to make that up. Somebody did the hard.
The ones for Bernadette were like actually in the back of the book.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Wow.
Okay. Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck, 1939. The Grapes of Wrath is a landmark of American literature, a portrait of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless, of one man's fierce reaction to injustice, and of one woman's stoical strength. The novel captures the horrors of the Great Depression and probes into the very nature of equality and justice in America. Although it follows the movement of thousands of men and women and the transformation of an entire nation, The Grapes of Wrath is also the story of one Oklahoma family, the Joads, who are driven off their homestead and forced to travel west to the promised land of California. Out of their trials and their repeated collisions against the hard realities of an America divided into haves and have-nots, evolves a drama that is intensely human, yet majestic in its scale and moral vision, elemental yet plain-spoken, tragic but ultimately stirring in its human dignity. First published in 1939, The Grapes of Wrath summed up its era in the way that Uncle Tom's Cabin summed up the years of slavery before the Civil War. Sensitive to fascist and communist criticism, Steinbeck insisted that the Battle Hymn of the Republic be printed in its entirety in the first edition of the book, which takes its title from the verse, "He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored." At once a naturalistic epic, captivity narrative, road novel, and transcendental gospel, Steinbeck's fictional chronicle of the Dust Bowl migration of the 1930s is perhaps the most American of American classics.
Okay.
And that is from the publisher. So that is how they sell that book. Publisher is Penguin. Penguin Group. Probably at this point, Penguin Classics.
Yeah.
There is a lot to unpack in this book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of book.
Yeah. What attracted me to it is its climate refugees, its economic refugees, its classism in America, it's where we live. Like, it spans the state of California. It was really neat because we went to Riverside County this weekend, and that's where they kind of, I mean, it's not exactly,
yeah, but you get the idea.
It's the same terrain as where they arrive in California. So it's kind of neat to be listening while we're driving
and know
through
those
that.
places. Yeah.
There's a lot.
So how long was this book? I listened to it. I think we all listened to it.
It's 400 and something pages. Let's see if it has it on here. 464 pages. And I think it was 21 and some change hours.
I don't remember how long it was.
21 hours plus a few minutes. I don't know if it's like half hour or so. You commented that you felt like it was taking... Like, how did you feel as you were...
Well, I think part of it is that the last book club we did, which was Where Did You Go, Bernadette, we recorded that, like, forever ago. And then I started listening to it right after that, and it's been, like, a month and a half. Like, maybe even 2 months. I don't remember when we recorded it, but it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. It was, like, all of December, and now we're halfway through January.
So I started it, and then Christmas happened, so I wasn't really reading anything. And then I feel like this was the only thing I read for the last, like, 2 months, which is why it felt like it did take forever.
I had to take a break, and I
definitely took a break.
Some real fluffy young adult sci-fi.
Yeah. It's just, I listen to it at, like, 1.5 speed most of the time. Number one, the narrator talks real slow.
That's
slow.
That's what I was hoping, the point I was hoping to get to.
See, on the audiobook, I had it sped up so I didn't notice.
Well,
yeah, I did too.
When you said you
1.5
started listening, I went to 1.65.
Yeah. He's real slow.
That's the way they talk in the middle of the country.
Oh, I know,
right?
but that's not how that we talk.
That is a Midwest thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is weird.
There's sort of a drawl.
The California took over in you, because I do not find you tediously slow in your
No, remember, I came in second grade. I came when I was about 8. But there was a huge difference between, Texas and St. Louis. That Midwest mindset is so different. I mean, you might be shocked. I was a bully in school.
I am shocked, and
it wasn't really so much a shock. I learned to behave from boys because girls had politics and I didn't play politics. So if a boy shoved you down, I learned to shove him back. But see, in the Midwest,
you'd make a good Ruthie.
See, but in the Midwest, you play on grass. And when I came to Van Nuys, they had asphalt. So when you shove somebody and they shove you back and you're wearing a dress, you learn not to shove.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's just a different. You know, I learned to hold my own before, and
I think it might be a 21-hour book because
he speaks so slowly.
He's speaking at the rate that someone from that region of the country would speak.
I didn't realize how slow it was because I think I was used to it at like 1.5 speed, and then James wanted to listen to it with me one day when we were driving somewhere, and I put it on normal speed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't, I'm just so used to him talking fast. I can't handle this. I'm sorry, I have to speed it up.
Because I don't find Steinbeck generally to be a tedious author.
No.
I haven't read a lot.
Certainly did.
I haven't read a lot of him. I think this is my third book. I read The Red Pony as a girl. And I read Of Mice and Men, and now I have finally truly read this.
Of Mice and Men is one of the ones that I actually did read that I was supposed to read.
I almost brought the book I have as one
of
his
reasonable size.
Yeah. I have one of his last ones called The Sun Also Rises.
Yeah.
And it was like post-divorce. He's in Monterey. And the thing is only like less than half an inch thick.
Yeah, this is
on a
like
paperback.
An epic.
So, yeah. But I feel
Is
like...
From Here to Eternity then one of his like other ginormous ones?
Is that Steinbeck?
I have no idea.
I think it is. It was recommended on this page while I was looking up our question.
My problem with this book is I just don't think I like Steinbeck because I feel like he doesn't know when to stop. Number one, it's like some of the chapters are like super long, some of them are super short, but also like the book, what bothered me is that there's not like a through line plot that you can follow, and I understand why, because it's like you're just following this family's story, but it was hard for me to keep interested because I didn't know where we were I knew where we were gonna end up, but I didn't know how we were gonna get there.
But that's
I also didn't really care how we were gonna get there.
Okay, but
because it took so long, and then all of a sudden the book ended, and I'm like, you could have done. The ending could have been as effective 2 chapters earlier when something else bad happened
and
to them.
thus the movie leaves a lot out.
I watched the movie today.
I made it myself, finished the book before I could watch the movie.
I watched the movie this afternoon.
And I found that the movie, some of the scenes, like some of the characters were left out.
Is the barn in the movie?
No.
Okay.
But neither is the flood in the railroad cars.
Yeah, they leave that whole part out.
I mean, that's huge. That's like dramatic.
Rosa Sharon doesn't even have her baby in the movie.
No.
She's just pregnant, and then they're moving on, and they're on their way to go pick cotton, and that's the end of the book.
But I feel like
after Tom has left, or that's the end of the movie.
Okay, well that's fair. So it is weird. It sort of has 2 endings.
Yeah, because Tom leaves, and you're like, that could have been the end of the book. Because he was like our main character we were following, and then all of a sudden we're not with him anymore.
But don't you think there's a transition to where Ma becomes the main character?
Oh, definitely.
Like,
yeah, I think so.
And I think that moment where Tom leaves and the book doesn't end just really nails that.
And that's something. That's another thing to read the book, because you don't get the movie. You don't get to see her character development over and over in the book. They go, "Wow, I never saw Mom ever do that before."
Yeah.
Whoa, she's this hard life.
When they introduce her,
the hopefulness of her starts to die down as the fierceness of we are going to keep it together.
The description of her when he walks in on her, making the breakfast, and they're gonna startle her. It's scene stealing. Like she immediately steals the show.
Yeah.
As soon
and you
as
love
we
her.
meet her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bookmarked it in the audiobook, but I didn't grab the actual text because I wanted to come back to the way that Steinbeck describes her in that introduction is so poignant.
But you even see a touch of their marriage, their relationship, that the father's like, oh, let's surprise her. Let's do this little joke on her. And whereas I was kind of a little disappointed in the movie, because in the movie it's more like, "Hi, Mom, I'm here."
That's so interesting, Karin, because it kept striking me in the later chapters about how he kept I love it when they have their showdown of I'm going to get a stick and I'm going to beat you.
Yeah, and she's
like, I got a stick right here.
Yeah. Let's see if your stick is your stick as big as mine?
But like, that's not what we see from them. We see like love and tenderness.
Yeah. We see love, but we see what the hardness of this is forcing her out of her character. Yeah. She's the tender nurturer. I feel like if I had listened to it, and I would have been bored out of my mind because it would have been slow. But I do feel like the road trip is a very long. You get the feeling that it takes a couple days. It probably took more than a week. It probably took a couple weeks to travel. It was very
nebulous how long they were gone.
Did anybody else picture the Beverly Hillbillies truck?
Yes,
always. Okay.
I'm sure the Beverly Hillbillies truck is supposed to evoke this.
Oh, that's true. It was probably inspired by that. I
wasn't entirely sure where we were going to go, because in my mind, the book was mostly just about getting to California.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the book, or not even halfway, they're in California. I'm like, where the hell are we going to go now? Like, I thought the book was going to be over by the time they got to California. And then I was like, okay, now we got a lot more book left. Okay,
because he's setting you up just in the beginning. You feel like we're just going to get to California and everything we hope for was going to happen. I expected it to take
a lot longer for them to get there.
Yeah.
I was constantly returning to my own family history too. I mean, I think we all have. It'd be interesting to know, like, your family roots start in this region of the country.
My family was in California. They were. Yeah, you're right. Our family, my grandmother, they were all part of that migration that came through St. Louis.
Turn back though, or they stayed in St. Louis?
They went through St. Louis to come to California because that's where the work was.
Were they the smart people who left though? Like all those people who were like, stop.
Well, my grandmother's born in 1914, but she was married here. Remember, my mother, she was already here. Well, I guess she would have gotten here in the 30s. Her uncle and her aunt were already here. So. But her father was one of the building inspectors for the downtown city hall in Los Angeles. He died in a cave-in when they were first building it. So they were already here before the big migration happened.
Got it.
My dad's grandparents were Okies from Oklahoma.
So my grandmother came from Kansas. My husband's grandmother also came from Kansas. Mm-hmm. So like neither of our families would have shaped the way it was if they hadn't.
Well, right. Okay, so the Depression area was not just Oklahoma or Arkansas. They were called Arkies, but it was a lot of Midwest.
Oh yeah.
It was. So
they meet. You're like, you're not. What, you're not. They didn't call them Okies. They called them
Reds.
No, it was a nice thing between the two families.
Oh yeah.
The Winslows.
Wilsons are not in the movie.
There was the Wainwrights at the end.
Yeah.
And so when they meet that family, they're like, "Oh, you're not like us. You have a funny way of talking."
Yeah, they're from
but they
Oklahoma
called them
City
something nicer, though. They called them the Oklahoma residents called themselves something nicer.
I don't remember.
Okies and Arkies were those terms were slurs.
Yeah.
Put upon by other people. Now, I think this attitude towards migrant people is the same as they had for gypsies and for anybody else.
It's everything. That was like
the established city.
That's still a thing.
To migrant. Oh yeah.
There's a migrant camp of workers in Fillmore, and I remember people talking about them
And it was built for the migrant workers.
Yeah, and I had to walk past them every day on my way to school, and I remember thinking, because I had heard from other people that it was dangerous. And you can't trust them, and, they're not good people. I'm like, they're just people who are trying to support their families.
Well, see, the fact of the matter is there probably were bad people in there. Just like every percentage of everywhere where human beings are bad, there's bad people. But the huge majority of people are people who, like they keep saying, I just got to eat, right?
I'm just trying to feed my family.
Trying to feed my family.
Yeah.
But in Hooverville, they're treated like non-humans.
Yeah, they actually say they're less than human.
They're They're human. Mm-hmm. They're self-governance.
I almost grabbed my book that had pictures of that, so you guys could see.
That's the most American idea. Is like self-governance and
of the people, for the people, by the people. But again, it was we're going to govern ourselves because no matter where we go outside of here, we're going to be outsiders. Mm-hmm. people in the community are always look askance to people who are going to come through but not stay and contribute. But
they were never given the opportunity
because you're different.
Well, and
because you're other.
Yeah. So on one side, I was looking at, my grandmother came from the Midwest. They were part of this migration. Mm-hmm. She was born in 1911, so she would have been like Rose of Sharon kind of contemporary. Mm-hmm. And my family, my paternal side, how do you say that? They're both paternal. Anyway, my grandfather's family were first generation immigrants from France. Mm-hmm. And my great grandfather was one of these farmers. I like to think that he was because I know that my dad worked the land, and they grew lima beans, which I meant to look up today of what is the lima bean harvesting? Well, which is what our county of Ventura is founded on, is lima beans.
We are? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was the first.
I also know that this is the artichoke capital. Is Ventura County.
That's cool.
I don't know why they charge us just as much as other places, but whatever. Different topic.
Well, when you try out the bad, I
thought Castroville was artichokes, the artichoke capital of the world. Because I've been to the artichoke capital of the world, and it's like Castroville, California, or something.
I was to the date capital of California, which is Indio.
I was going to say, is that south by Palm Springs? Because they're real into their dates down there.
Oh, so I love dates.
Having only lived in LA for a short time before we moved into the San Joaquin Valley, which is where all of this is happening.
That's Steinbeck's place,
But that's not where he's from, actually. He grew up in Monterey and the various places, but he did he was a reporter and a journalist during this time.
Did you see? I saw somewhere that he's a marine biology major from Stanford.
He's incredibly smart man, yes.
So my husband's cousin.
Another reason for him to have been at
she did a PhD
Bay.
on Steinbeck. Mm-hmm. So I wish we had her here because but you try the scandalous things out that your parents say. You know that they're saying a scandalous thing, but it's not necessarily a bad word.
Yeah.
So my dad used to say all the time, keep your pea picking hands and your cotton picking hands off of it. And I feel sick. I knew that was not a nice thing to say somewhere in my early, late teens. And so I never, ever, ever really said it. But I thought it was on the face that it was a racial slur.
Yeah.
I'm now reading this and getting a better insight that he probably picked it up from his father and grandfather, and that it is so clearly a slur on these migrant workers.
Well, I will say, as these... So for
which made me feel bad and better at the same time.
Yeah,
because
both bad.
Having grown up in most of my remembering life in this area that they're talking about in the book, by the time the 60s and 70s came around, all those people had settled, and many of them had eventually had property of their own,
of course,
including cotton, but.
You don't get somebody like Ma Jode and not get something.
Yeah.
So we just don't get to see that.
The migrant worker, when I was growing up, were people who had green cards, who came up from Mexico, and they did the same thing. They had to travel where the crops were. Migrant workers, just they traveled from San Diego all the way through Washington State.
Oh, I know.
Up
they
and
go
down.
Everywhere. They go anywhere they can.
And the high schools and the schools in the country area are migrant schools, and they the teachers there only operate for 3 months at a time. They don't move with the students. But we spent one spring harvesting strawberries for strawberry jam, and I will tell you that experience made me teach my children. If you see someone in the field picking food for you, you have great respect for them. You don't think less of them because they're doing work that you think is below you. They're doing honorable work because that is hard physical work.
Absolutely.
And they get paid. I mean, they were getting paid less.
It's still piecework.
Yeah. When I was getting paid minimum wage at $3.35 an hour a long time ago, they were getting.
I was $4.75, so
they were still back in the 80s, early 80s. They were still only getting $1 or $2 an hour, So this is why their whole family would work just the same. It's just the skin color, and the accent changed.
Well, the interesting thing too is like there's farmers in the world, because this is still the case, right? There are good, honest farmers who work alongside their people who are working in their field. And I like to think that is what Lick Rivian Ranches was doing. And we see that in the book. But their hands are tied by the forces. Yeah.
By the Grange.
Yeah.
The Grange sets the prices. If you don't go along with the Grange, think of it as a union, the local union for farmers.
But it's not a union. That's really important. It's not a bit. It's the hand strings on the pull strings on the money.
Often also influenced by bankers.
Well, and so this corporatization of our country, like it was so. I do have legit questions. I think it's a fun conversation so far, but this one got cut off. It's the when the narrator says men ate what they had not raised and had no connection with the bread. The implication is that this break diminishes humanity. Can you illustrate points on that? I mean, people say it all the time. Like, children don't know where their food comes from.
Right.
No, it's true. I did not have the strawberry jam we made that summer tasted so much sweeter because literally your back is bent over and your knees are muddy and even though it's chilly because we're there early morning, you're sweating. And that was after we came along after most of the workers had gone through, and they let local people go and pick, it was like, I think we paid $2 for a crate.
Oh my God.
Because we picked it ourselves.
And you say, like, kids don't know where their food comes from, which is totally true. But you also, like, you go to the grocery store and you pick up, your bananas or whatever, and, you see maybe there's a sticker that says, was grown in wherever. Ecuador. But you never think about it. Yeah. You don't think about it. Yeah. You just buy it.
And I mean, particularly bananas are an interesting one because they don't self-replicate, and so they're actually in danger again. We're in danger of not having bananas because
bananas are going to go extinct.
I think it's a fungus that took out the previous genus or whatever of bananas is now adapting to our current banana.
Oh wow!
And so there's. We're going to have no bananas.
Do you know my fun fact about bananas?
Tell me your fun fact
about bananas. Bananas, when you get, like, banana-flavored whatever, like banana-flavored candy or whatever, it does not taste like bananas, right?
No. I hate it.
It tastes like the previous genus of banana that went extinct. That's what bananas used to taste like.
Way.
And that's how they made the food flavoring was based off of that banana. I don't know why they don't change it.
It's fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
Because bananas are not as flavorful.
Thank God for that fungus.
I know.
I hope we can beat it now, but I do not
I love banana candy.
Oh, I hate it. I will give it to you.
Like when you get rice and you give away all the banana ones.
Yes.
Yeah. Give me the black licorice and the banana.
Anise is growing on me. I'm like high quality black licorice I'm into. There are a few good questions I think here. What does Mom mean when she says Baron and Diane is two pieces of the same thing? I mean, I just think it ties right back to, like,
it's all part of life.
This cyclical nature of everything. Like, the Pa is really despairing later in the book, and he's like, this is the end of our life. Look at what's come of our family. And she's like, no, this is just a different beginning. Like, I feel like I know it's long and it's strange that the book branches this way, but Rose of Sharon had to have her baby.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, which is why it's interesting that they left it out of the movie, because I was expecting that to happen. But what's interesting is Ma says, I think a couple times, about how, like, as long as the men are angry, they still have, like, the fighting spirit in them. And when they stop being angry, then they give up. But all the way to the end, I felt like Pa was still, because at the end he's the one that incites that we have to build this dam to try and save our whatever, and then only at the very end when it doesn't work and the tree falls and they have to run away, I think that's probably where he does break, and that's where the book ends.
I like to think that it was a temporary break, that he hadn't fully given up, because even though this also speaks to me about their marriage, is because they were a partnership. There was none of this, I'm the man and I'm going to be the man and you're going to...
Well, there was, but he gave up on it real easy.
Yeah, it was very futile.
Yeah.
He wasn't holding on to pride. He could see that she was helping hold... They still had this partnership that they were holding everything together.
But he doesn't stop mentioning how it's wrong that she's the one that's leading the family. He says that up until the end.
Because culturally, it's still kind of humiliating for him, and he might be being judged from the other men folk. But he certainly couldn't be any worse than the baby daddy who ran off.
Oh, Connie's the worst.
Yeah, he sucks. Also, a lot of the family is kind of the worst. Because Rosa Sharon sucks. I mean, she's doing her best, but she's really obnoxious. Yeah. Just like, I understand you're dying and you're trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
But Connie is terrible. Also, Noah runs off in the book, and I don't know if I blinked and I missed it, but he just disappears in the movie.
I did doze off a little.
He just disappeared.
I think that's it, but I didn't notice.
But they never mention him. They're not like, oh,
Isn't
Noah
he the
left.
one that just goes? He just goes down the stream. And
but he just in the movie he's just not there anymore.
Oh.
He's just like that character. They stopped counting him. He's like, we got 6 people now, and you're like, well, where the hell did Noah go? They don't even mention it in the movie. Unless I blinked and missed it.
Noah is so important, though.
Definitely. Because it humanizes Pa in that he feels... Yeah. It gives him some character that he feels so bad about it.
Yeah. His tenderness towards his son and the air he made. Because, I mean, nothing in these people's life has probably ever been easy.
No.
It was just less hard.
And it was what they knew.
It was the devil they knew.
Yeah.
They knew how battle is. I felt like part of Rosa Sharon...
in the life they chose.
She was a young person. She had these hopes and dreams of what her life was going to be, and her husband, the person that she, believed everything in, kept giving her these fantasy pie in the sky stories. It'll cost me. It doesn't cost me nothing to get this education, and then we're going to be rolling in the dough. And she just wanted so desperately. I feel like to keep from totally cracking up.
Yeah, they were both fooling themselves.
But I think she needed that fantasy to help her get to the next day.
Yeah, definitely.
And to the next day until finally
and I
she's
think he did too until he realized that it was
a
pipe
this is
dream,
not
and
real.
then he left.
Well, I think
she can't leave.
A cycle disrupted, right? So Rose of Sharon is this young girl who's has everything lined up in the cycle that she knows is the natural path, and it's completely upended by this exodus.
Right.
Which, I mean, these are two silly things. They lead to each other, but why does the book start with drought and end with floods? And why does Uncle John set the dead baby adrift rather than bury it? Like, it's so biblical.
Yeah, Moses.
So I had to write down, let my people go. Because they're economic and climate refugees, and now they are economic prisoners because they're just like they can't die or beg,
Yeah.
It was interesting, like the idea of completely rejecting charity, like what's deemed charity and what's deemed rightfully yours and rightfully earned.
They don't really give up on that though, like the whole time.
No, they. I mean, because
I figured by the end they probably would, but
they just have to. Yeah. There's that woman whose kids eat the green grapes, and the women's committee is like, now you have no right to have done that. We have this system. You go and you get your credit, and I've never taken charity. It's not charity.
Right.
You'll pay it back.
It works.
We trust you that you'll pay it back. Yeah. And you got to look after your kids, and it's not charity. And I don't think the Jodes ever take advantage of it because that's what prompts them to leave. There's the reality. There's no work, so they had to leave.
There's no
but
work.
He even mentions that like we don't have any money for food, and they're like, okay, I get it, So I think maybe a lot of people probably felt the same way they did. It was like, I don't want to take advantage of your camp store because I feel like you're taking pity on me.
You're very kind, and I don't want to be mooching off of this. I can't contribute back. They're not afraid of the hard work. That's all they have ever done. Day in and day out. Hard work is what they do. And it's killing Pa because he's like, I will work hard. I know how to work hard, but they won't even let me work.
Well, I love that moment of bliss when they get to when they're doing the cotton, and to them they've like it's all good. It's, we're back on our path. This is
something familiar in this very weird world.
And they can eat, and they have new clothes. They're gonna have Cracker Jack.
The whole time I'm like,
damn
save
Cracker
your money.
Jack.
I'm like, why are you spending all your money?
Don't you know what's gonna happen to Rose of Sharon?
Okay. As someone who is super, super poor, you go through these times where I know in practicality you should, when you do get some money, you should save.
Oh, I know, but you can't help but treat yourself when you've lived without for so long.
And look at the treats.
Yeah,
meat
to eat
and clothing.
Yeah. No, I
what
get
a treat.
It. But in my mind, I'm like,
needs.
Don't you know what's gonna happen in the next chapter? No,
more fried dough for you.
No.
And think about when I thought donuts eating donuts is killing people. Yeah, because it's plain flour that has no nutrients in it.
It's not even enriched.
All they've got is plain, probably the worst quality of the flour that's being
overpriced.
And lard, and it's still not enough. It's so lacking in nutrition that they even have a word, I don't remember what the word was, for the children that are dying with these bloated, gassy it's like they're decaying from the inside out.
Yeah.
It's just the cruelty
when they're at the Hooverville and they get there and she starts making stew and all the little kids show up with their spoons because they're so hungry.
And
she's like, I can't not feed them. I know.
But then that poor woman who's like,
you have no right to feed my children because I can't feed my own children. You're like,
don't you think I feel really horrible? And now my kids think I'm just being stingy.
And I can't provide for them.
It's already painful that I can't provide. And now some stranger comes along and is magically making things better. And she's like, no, we're suffering too. But
it was interesting how Steinbeck used like all these different ways. Like they lived at so many different places. Like they camped. And then they were in the Hoovervilles. And then they were in the government camp. And then they were at the peach farm, like living in the room. And then they were in the like boxcar at the end. Because I'm sure those are all different ways that people did survive. But he was able, he showed us all the different ways.
So much illustration.
And which ways are better and, whatever.
Oh, how bad must the peach farm have been for them to walk into that and be like, ugh.
Yeah, this is a bad place.
So here's a little bit of Ventura County thing. There are little cottages that still exist and people live in them that were made for migrant workers right here in Ventura.
My sister lives in one.
I know.
Yes.
We had some good friends
but
there.
I thought you said that's really cute and sweet.
It's very small. It's very cute now.
It's very cute, but it is very small.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this one had 2 kind of small bedrooms, and they had like a closet that was like not even as small, not even as wide as this, and it had doors on both sides because the 2 bedrooms shared this closet that was about this. It wasn't much bigger than the water container. I mean, we're talking not even as wide as the door.
Well, so you can
not
imagine
very deep,
the
and only about a foot deep.
So more about our county. So all of Ventura Avenue is bungalows that were built for the oil workers, and those are 2-bedroom, usually 2, at least 1.5 bath, I think.
They are adorable cottages, but
they're it's super cute. Her address is like on Main Street, which she does not live on Main Street. But when her house was built, it was on Main Street, but they picked it up and moved it. And it retained its old address.
No way!
So it was one of the first houses built in the county.
This is the one on Telegraph, right?
No, it's off the 126 before you come into Fillmore. Oh. Like near the nursery.
No, the one I'm talking about is in Ventura. It's in the, the orange grove that's near Mound School?
Not really.
Okay, on Telegraph, just past Victoria, you're behind the shopping center.
Yeah, I just don't think I've driven around that area.
Yeah, well, you pass the orange grove, they still have like a fence and everything. In the very center of
I know what you're talking
are
about.
Like 6 little cottages.
Yeah.
I think there must be some on the avenue.
Yeah.
Like, it's right, it's where Kellogg Park is, behind Kellogg Park. There are these tiny little things, and I'm like, how can you ask people to pay rent for those?
Yeah.
The inside of that 2-bedroom one bath, one kind of a living room and kind of a kitchen, a little tiny mudroom, is still smaller than this office space.
Oh yeah, I believe it. But so imagine the wealth of those bungalows.
Yeah, but it's still oil workers. Oh yeah, but still, this was a roof over their head.
Yeah. When the basic needs are all you're trying to.
Okay, imagine if you're a child and you've never seen flush toilets before.
I love that.
I love that part when they thought they broke it.
Oh my God, you broke it! You told on me and said that I broke it. Well, I know you didn't break it.
I know you didn't.
That's
sure,
so funny.
Ruthie.
Yeah, I knew the whole time. Yeah, when they get to like the camp and it's like awesome and they're loving it there and you're like, this is too good to be true. And then they leave and then they're staying.
Thanks a lot, Cracker Jack.
Yeah.
No, this is pre-Cracker Jack.
I don't know. Well, when they're at the peach farm, they just have like a one-room little house. And you're listening to it and you're like, oh, they have a new place to stay. But then, like, Rosa Sharon walks in, she's like, are we going to live here? And Mom's like, it's okay, it's not that bad.
How
like,
gross must it have been?
It must have been real bad, because I was like, oh, good for them, they have a floor now.
How bad must it have been when a railroad boxcar looks better?
Right, yeah.
Well,
there's something about the government camp and the railroad boxcar that wasn't present at the peach farm, which is that self-governance, that right to make it your own.
In the peach farm, they were in the middle of a giant strike.
Yeah.
And they were unsafe.
But even if they wanted to leave, they would not have been allowed to leave. I think
you're right.
They had to sneak out because...
Well, they were allowed to leave. They had a hard time leaving because they were smuggling a fugitive. But I think anybody could have left at any time. Because they said, like, are you leaving? Okay, I just have to check you out.
He got sent back.
He got sent back.
When Casey appears.
But she's right. It's because there was a
plot
strike.
Twist, right?
Yeah.
Casey was back.
It was kind of, what is that called? It was sort of martial law over the... Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is part of, like, in that description of them being, what is this, a captivity narrative. Like, they... So, I mean, I was uncomfortable with all the negative framing of the law enforcement. But I think that must be factual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And regionally so, like...
Right.
The,
Yeah, having grown up in that area, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you get into some of the smaller outlying towns, and the only people in power, their family's been in power, as the mayor and the sheriff, and I mean, and their Grange members. I mean... Yeah.
Even there was something terrible that happened in California in like the Bakersfield area where this young man like died in police custody, and like somehow I got wind of it through like the family looking for a funeral home. It was maybe in the last 2 years. Okay. And I think a police officer killed a young man who was being taken into custody. And I talked to this family, and there was never one word of a news story about it. Like nothing. I tried to Google and like find out more about it, and all that I could find out is that the officer and his family were connected, and that was it. And then never one iota of coverage.
I'm telling you, even growing up in Fresno, there's whole areas of town where all the properties and the streets are named after the same family.
Yeah, I mean, that happens.
That happens everywhere. But
that part, I'm not. I mean,
it's fine. But it becomes a very we've done it this way, and our family likes it this way. It's not a very
welcoming environment to come into.
No. And I mean, there's a particular nature to that. Like in Ventura, we have those old families, and they let you know who they are. But we don't live in a city that's governed that way. Like, and so I think the scale probably has an influence.
But at the time that all of these people are migrating, this mass migration. A lot of these little towns going up and down the San Joaquin Valley only existed because the railroad. Okay, Mr. Purina of the Purina Foods, he was a big railroad person, and his family actually was part of, I believe, in Delano, which is also related to the Roosevelts.
Well, that was interesting. They talk about the Fairfield family in there, and it's like, because my husband's from the Bay Area, so like, oh, I know where Fairfield is. Oh, tricked you. I'm going to take it now.
So there is a distrust because these families were the first to inhabit this area, and they worked hard to build it up. and they see these people coming in and wanting their piece of it, but they didn't ask. All of this, and a lot of this happened because one person made a flyer and printed so much of it.
Isn't that insane?
Okay, the person who made that flyer, and they're like, how are they getting money? But they got money because every time people would refer or will pull these out, they paid the guy who was printing them.
So now a printer's the villain, Karen? You're hitting my family again. I'm just kidding.
Well, no, totally kidding.
I know.
But you know what I'm saying? Because I know Paul kept saying it can't be false.
Why would they print all these?
Why would they print all this? This costs a lot of money.
You should believe everything you read. And one person's point of view, like to him, how do you get your information printed, right? Like you must be an authority figure to get this
right to be able to send it out so far
in an area in a time where very few people still even knew how to read.
Yeah.
They
keep coming back to that of like, Pa can make letters, but he doesn't like to.
Yeah.
We were going to write you, I promise.
I'm telling you, when I was little, everyone believed that they couldn't print it if it wasn't true.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of people who think that now.
That's true.
That's a cool pen.
So it's a
friction pen.
So, I mean, that's what's so... I was hoping to find something like a list of questions that was more current. Because, like, doesn't everybody think that if it's in a published place that it's true, i.e. like Facebook, fake news, like
right,
like people
are more wary of it nowadays, but
not all people.
No, not all people.
You know, they're like, there is this like the ability for authority to control. When authority is a small group of people, and they come back to this, authority is this tiny group of people, but if you all join your voices in one chorus against that, like people just put too much stock in authority. I don't know where that was going.
Yeah.
The thing is, the people that would have to pull together to rise up, they have so little anyway. They can't afford to lose the little they've got.
Well, that's
it's a much bigger risk for someone. I looked up part of the reason they were talking about why these, besides the Dust Bowl, what had happened, why this Dust Bowl even started, was because there was a time when there was other crops being grown.
Yeah, they were using the land more wisely.
But because of the Depression and because of the New Deal, the government was offering people subsidies to grow wheat to help feed more of America. So but
it was cotton that stripped the land.
It wasn't just cotton. The problem with wheat is wheat did not have enough roots, and so when the winds,
was the same with cotton.
When the winds came through, there was nothing. There was nothing to hold it. Mm-hmm. So part of it was post Depression, but they were saying, a bushel of wheat weighs 56 pounds. That 56 pounds of a bushel is 10 cents.
Is this book set post Depression or in the Depression?
It's
nearing the end of it, isn't it? I think they mention it in it, like the Depression's coming to an end.
It's nearing the end. When I looked it up, it was right. Well, it was the middle to early 30s. It wasn't that many years after the stock market crash people and
the
farmers.
Stock market crashed in 1929, right?
Yes.
In the Depression, I mean, people get to this level of need, but farmers wouldn't have gotten to it at the front end.
They wouldn't have hurt. They didn't get hurt in the front end because they didn't have money for stocks.
Also,
but when the people the banks who were losing money, they needed to get their money back. They were trying to get it from the farmers because at least farmers could feed their families in the beginning of the Depression.
Well, banks are too big to fail.
Well,
so you really have to let them do their thing.
Didn't you love that logic in the beginning? Well, cause when the guy's like, "I'll take a shotgun. I will shoot the man." You can't shoot the man. The man is a bank. How do I?
She's like, "Okay, well, where's the bank?" He's like, "Well, that's the manager of the bank. And then you can't shoot him."
And then
because he has to take his orders from the bank, the cloud.
Well, before 2008,
yeah.
But here we are. 70 years later, and we let our economy come to the exact same end. Only the banks become even more diluted. You can't even find who holds your mortgage because it's 1,000 securities. Like, how do we keep doing this?
In the 14 years that we've had our mortgage, we're now on mortgage company number 5. We never changed it. Our mortgage has been bought by somebody else, who's been bought by somebody else.
You said 14 years?
We've been there, I think, well, coming on 15.
Would you say that most of that transition was in the early years?
No.
It's been new?
We just got a new one called New Res, and I gotta feel like I'm kind of I feel really uncomfortable about this. I don't know what New Res is. But they own our mortgage now.
Oh, grand.
I don't even know who they are. We had GMAC. We started with GMAC, and each one is a whole other name of people I don't even know.
We started with a mortgage, broker, and then it was B of A until we just refinanced. So I had thought maybe that behavior had settled down. I like this question here.
Every 2 years we get a new one, it seems like.
That's nuts.
It is.
Why do different characters, this I think easily answered as well, but why do different characters insist at different points in the book, a fella gotta eat? I mean, for justification.
Yeah.
Like my favorite.
Like I'll do whatever. I have to feed my family, so.
The tractor driver.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Many people along the road, like the gas station guy. He's like, well, if I was a different kind of fella, I'd try to get. Oh, sorry, there's a lady here.
Yeah.
My favorite though is the Peach Ranch market tender.
Oh yeah.
And he...
Oh, wow.
He's trying.
I hate him so bad.
Oh, but he's trying. And then Ma's like... Ma breaks him.
Yeah, because she's like, I'm not taking any of your shit.
Yeah.
You're full of it. You have to feed your family. Hello?
I love the way it's narrated, even at a higher rate.
Yeah.
Like his tittering laughter. I'm like, I gotta do it.
Okay, but now the tractor driver... He got $3.
Well,
oh my gosh! Compared to, you worked all day and here's your $1.
Five people worked
all day and here's your $1.
And they were so excited to get $1.
I know.
$1. You know, but what a juxtaposition! The tractor guy, he gets
Power consolidated
$3 for maybe an hour's work to knock down their house.
Yeah. Well, it's because we were reading this book a long time because I went on 2 trips between. We went to Vegas and Hudson. We went to the Hudson Dam and
the Hoover Dam.
Hoover Dam, thank you, Hudson. Whatever.
Hudson River.
Hoover.
Okay, we went to the Hoover.
Yeah,
they clearly made an impression. What did make an impression is in the museum.
Mm-hmm.
There were all the wages for the different jobs you could get working on the dam. And I had just passed the chapter where it was $3 a day. And you had to be like a pretty technical...
skilled worker.
Yeah, a very skilled worker to get approach the $3 a day. Yeah. So that was
What year was the Hoover Dam built? I've been there. I read all the placards. I don't remember anything.
You have your phone handy, Karin. Would you look at that?
I'm just curious.
It's a WPA project.
Uh-huh.
It is a terrible rape of our land. It has had untold environmental impact.
Right.
Never be built today. But anyway. It's not,
From the Bureau of Reclamation. What is reclamation?
It has to do with, water management.
Yeah. Let me...
You don't get to use your National Park Pass.
It was constructed between 1931 and 1936.
Oh, so it was contemporary.
Mm-hmm. And it was, part of it was, originally it was called Boulder Dam, but they renamed it Hoover for President Hoover by a joint resolution in Congress. Our Congress could actually agree together to name a dam.
Well, I think Hoover was the Minister of the Interior or something like that, and it was his project. And then after he entered the presidency, they honored him with it.
But you think about it, it was also during the Great Depression. It part of its big purpose was creating jobs.
Yep. It's interesting that they named the dam for him as a way to as an honor, but they also called them Hoovervilles because it was his fault that all these poor people were living the way that they were. Yeah. And it was like a black spot,
Mm-hmm.
It's that illustrates no president is good or bad, entirely good or entirely bad too. He may have led our country into something horrible, but he also, those things were happening. The Hoover Dam was a project of his before he was even holding the presidential office. And there's a name made by the people. And
Right.
There's a name
That's true.
made by the
His
victors.
people, yeah.
The victors.
Yeah.
You know, the victors tell the history.
Okay, so the definition of a Hooverville is a shanty town built by unemployed and destitute people during the Depression in the early 1930s. But the way the Oxford Dictionary is putting it even puts a slant. Like, these are disreputable. They live in tin roof shacks.
I think this is like hopeful. I don't know how much we need to discuss it, but Casey tells Tom about a prisoner whose view of history is that every time they's a little step forward, she may slip back a little, but she never slips clear back. They wasn't no waste. Page 384. Do you agree with this view?
It's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's not 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would agree. I mean, progress is slow, and sometimes it slips back all the way. But if you look at the span of time, or whatever it is you're talking about, you might get there eventually. It might take a long time and a lot of suffering and a lot of lives, but
I think we're talking about 2 different things. I think progression in the scope of what benefits a greater group of people is one thing, but you're right. There's a lot of people that do fall on harder and harder times that don't recover, that are left. It's almost like this progress is being built on their backs.
Their lives are apart. It's like, I think the whole theme or the whole point of the book is, they say that the grapes of wrath are growing in the hearts of the men, is that people are upset about what's happening, and Tom goes away to help try and change it, like Casey was doing.
Yes.
So I think if we're talking about progress in the terms of the book, they're working to abolish the systems that are keeping them down and working for, workers' rights and unions and stuff so that they can get paid what they're actually meant to get paid.
That's when Casey trying to humanize all the way until his death. Like, if we could all hear that message of, you don't know what you're doing. You're starving children. Yeah. These are all people. Like if we look around our own community and the strife at our borders, these are human beings.
Right.
Like, your nationality, is that so important? You don't know what you're doing.
And it takes people like him, to die for the cause, because then Tom picks up his cause and continues with it. So it's a step backward in that Casey had to die for it, but then Tom is continuing.
Now, it's kind of interesting because Tom is a character who, there's times when he's like slow and measured and thoughtful about what's happening around him. But he's a pretty like reactionary person, whereas Casey is mindful and thoughtful about his actions.
Right.
Like, what is this movement in the hands of such a different character, too?
Yeah, that's true. Like, is more or less, or
who knows what it is? He went off into the wild blue yonder.
The book just ends, so we don't know.
I do wish there was an epilogue.
Yeah, I don't, because it would make the book longer. But
maybe that's very childish.
You could have taken out a couple chapters, and I would have been fine.
Yeah.
So, thinking about how this relates to another important historical figure of the San Joaquin Valley, Cesar Chavez. And his civil rights, I know as a person he had issues, but
it's a tender topic because he did good and he did bad. Like there were people who could come across who never had to abandon their nationality, who could work and cross safely.
Did you know that he was actually born in Arizona? He was not. So, and his parents owned a ranch and a small grocery store, but during the 30s, they lost everything. His family traveled in this Great Depression. They were some of the workers that came from Arizona to work here.
Fell from great heights, perhaps?
Yeah, so he and his family became migrant workers traveling around to find work. It was hard work. They didn't live in the same place for a long time. He would pick peas, pea picking. And lettuce in the winter, cherries and beans.
I will tell that truth.
What kind of so it's interesting that he lived that treatment.
He lived both ends.
He lived both ends.
Right.
He lived. To have it go from not just a poor farm. Because the farmers in Grapes of Wrath, they didn't own the land. They once did. They were sharecroppers.
I think that
I thought they were always sharecroppers.
I thought it
someone
was
else in their family did, but they lost it to the bank.
And then they borrow a little bit, and then the next generation borrows a little bit, and the next a little bit more.
And they became sharecroppers, or something of that nature, where they worked, or tenant farmers.
Sharecroppers.
Tenant farmers might be the right word.
I think they transitioned into tenant farmers from being people who
had one's own land.
What was it, like 40 acres and a mule? What is that called? That's I think they're people who had title to their land.
Right.
So what is that called? The end of Far and Away.
So I was thinking the Missouri land, the something land grab. It was, anyway, but I was thinking how he grew up as a child in those same conditions as Grapes of Wrath. And that's I was thinking he was like the Tom of his time.
So he may be more, he would, I could see that.
He was the Tom, that treatment of migrant workers, that influenced him to
he was an action and reaction kind of person, leader, too. Yeah. So I guess that's what the movement looks like in the hands of someone like Tom. There was another, tender moment in this that I wanted to come back to, but I think it left my brain because there is a lot to unpack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was sad when they started and they had, the 12 of them or whoever, and then Grandpa dies, and then Grandma dies, and then Noah leaves, and then Casey gets killed, and then I think that was all of them. Totally, right?
And then the baby. I mean, the baby is our hope.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the Ma says there never was a baby.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, it was very upsetting.
Yeah.
Think of how strong Ma had to be to hold it together. Knowing that
she had to be because she was the
no,
only one that was going to be.
You don't have any other choice. It's not bravery. I love it when Tom
specifically,
says that.
She's holding it together and she's holding a dead woman, trying to pass her off as just
ill. Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah. And I'm like, because how forward thinking she's like, her eye is still always on that.
And then
prize.
they
We're
shine the flashlight on. And they're like, "Oh my God, she is sick. Yeah, because she's dead.
She looks like
she's dead. Oh yeah, we really need a doctor."
But there's nothing worse than someone who looks so sick that they look dead to make other people go, "Oh, I don't want to look any closer."
No. And in the movie, she's just the grandma's just laying there with her eyes just wide open, looks completely dead. Not sleeping, but her eyes are wide open. And the people are like, "Holy crap, yeah, okay, go ahead, it's fine." Because she's freaking dead. No wonder she looks so terrible.
Okay. But she kept that to herself for hours.
Yeah.
All the way in.
Billy's got a cross.
Got a cross. Gonna hold my shit together.
No, that's not nice language, Karin. I think she says that to Ruthie at some point. Why? This is a real question that is on this list that I would love you guys to answer for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I think it adds to the creepiness of the final scene, which is...
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler. You read the book or you haven't, you're listening this far.
It's the one part of the book you remember happens in the book. Because it's that's the only thing I remembered. It's I know the very end of the book. Because I think when I was supposed to read it, I flipped to the end and I was like, "Oh my God."
What else horrible could happen in here? Oh. And I also remember only that.
Yeah.
But I remember in the middle. I don't know why.
You're like, that can't be the way this book is. Okay, I would like you to read the question.
They didn't even have their car anymore.
I was in a Catholic school in a sophomore year of high school, and I was like, "Excuse me, what did she do?"
So,
okay, so Rose of Sharon has a stillborn baby.
Yep.
There's a flood in their train car, and they are escaping. They're driving through the night because Ma needs to get her somewhere safe. They see a barn. They're running for the barn. They don't beat the storm. Sheets of rain are coming down. They break into this barn, and they find a little boy and his father. And little boy?
Yeah, and the father's dying.
The father is dying, and the boy explains how he stole bread and tried to feed Dad, and he threw it all up. He needs soup. He needs milk. Mm-hmm. Do you guys got any milk? And Ma and Rose of Sharon have this moment of connection.
Without saying anything.
Nothing.
And they know exactly what's going to happen.
Of course. if my mom made eye contact with me in these harrowing situations, of course I know she means that I should nurse this dying man.
And she doesn't even, she's just like, yup, I'll do it. You're like, okay.
You know what? What else could happen to her?
At
this point, she's like,
honestly,
hell, what else? Okay.
I can't imagine.
Is it the most humanizing or is it the most dehumanizing that she is brought to this moment of nourishment for this man?
It might be that, I mean, she didn't contribute anything
the whole way.
She was a large burden.
Yes.
So maybe this was her way of being like, I can help some way.
It wasn't cotton picking. She tried out with the cotton picking.
Honestly, I think
she had finally gotten so broken down.
What does Casey say? No. Muley, he says, am I touched? Len, he's like, no, you're not. Like, I don't think Rosa Sharon could come out of that not being touched.
Yes.
You know, I think she might be a little crazy by the end of it.
How
could you not be?
Tom and Casey are like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he real crazy.
Okay, here's the question.
Okay.
Why does Rosa Sharon smile as she feeds the starving man with milk intended for her baby?
That was disturbing. Why? Like, why are you smiling?
Why? Smiles mysteriously, staring off into the distance or something like that.
Something like that.
Mysteriously, though, is part of it.
I think she's going off back to that happy place where she's just pretending this is her baby. She's not looking at the guy. She's just thinking, I think she's gone off to some happy place where she and Noah, or she and, what's his name? Connie are together and this is their baby. And as long as I close my eyes and look off into the space, la la la, I can be in my fan. I don't know.
Rose of Sharon is having a transitional moment and tapping into her mother's strength as they describe this connection and this willingness to do the job. Because all the way up to it, Ma is caring for her, getting her out of her wet clothes and nurturing her. And they have this moment of connection, and she gives all that she has to give to this dying man to prevent him from dying and orphaning this child.
Right.
But also keep in mind...
But why is she smiling?
Her milk probably is coming in, and she's probably also pretty full. Uncomfortable.
Yeah. Maybe that's why she's smiling.
It's
she's
just
like, oh my God,
relief.
thank you.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I don't want to know why she smiled. That's what I'm going to land on. I'm not sure I would like to think about it anymore.
It was very
But it's all I can think about.
I should have just skipped the last page. I knew what was going to happen.
I did not know that at all.
Well, we're getting to chapter 30. She has to have her baby for this moment to happen. It must be where the book ends.
Yeah.
So I did know where we were going, and I've been waiting for it the entire book.
Okay, the question though, I don't remember, did it actually save the man, or did she do that and he still died? He just died.
It doesn't matter. It just ends. She stares off smiling, and then the book is done, and you're like, what the hell happened?
But you can understand why that did not make it into the movie.
No.
You know, the classic, whenever
also
there's a man
the dead
getting
baby didn't make
up,
it into the movie.
I'll be there. Whenever there's a baby hungry, crying from hungry, that's in the movie, but that's like
I've heard that reference so many times, and I didn't know that this is what that was from, and I was like, oh, I know what this is.
All right. Shoot.
Uh-oh.
Where was it? Okay. Well, anyway.
That's the end of the book.
Yeah, the end. So thanks for coming to school with me, guys. I finally finished that sophomore year summer reading.
Oh my God. I'm not disappointed that I read it because it was interesting and I'm glad that I did read it. I wish it was shorter.
Of Mice of Men length.
I'm surprised that there's not a remake of that movie. Like
that
a contemporary, like a modern day remake of that movie.
I think there's
so timely.
I feel like it could honestly be something that like they would remake. I mean, they remake everything nowadays.
Works, right? So
but
Little Women's on its third or fourth movie. You know?
Yeah, but I think the performances done by the actress who played Ma, because I saw her in some other movie, and
I'm sorry, there's only one Mr. Darcy, and they came back to that.
So Henry Fonda, he's so iconic there. I just don't
Yeah, well, you can remake any movie nowadays. Like, they don't care about that.
You can kind of hear the narrator in this audiobook sounding like it's like he's trying to sound
James
like
said the same thing. He showed up and he's like, that sounds just like the narrator. I'm like, I think the narrator's trying to sound like... You know what's fascinating is that the book came out in 1939 and the movie came out in 1940. Yeah, like the next year.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think he had a really good literary agent. Like, I've learned a little bit about his history and, like, people who kept his creativity flowing.
Well,
and on pack.
I don't know how long it used to take them to make movies. They didn't have to do a lot with set design.
Take longer.
Which tells me that maybe this was written kind of as a screenplay, a screen thing.
That's interesting.
Because
that would be easy to learn, though.
Because
I think it's his writing process is well documented.
Look how big this book is.
But you can see how they adapted it for the screen. It wasn't made for the screen because the book is 1,000,000 hours long, and they cut out so much for the movie. They're just like, we'll pick this and this and this. How long is the book? Forever.
You're still reading
the movie's 2 hours. Which is a long movie for back in the day. Like, that's a long movie for 1940.
I mean, think of the epics, right?
That's true.
Like,
I mean, you watch like...
Did it have an intermission, ladies?
No, it didn't.
No, but Gone with the Wind had an intermission. You think how long that was.
Yep.
So...
This is, you know what's kind of interesting about this book is that it is so well read. It has really controversial ideas, and it's so well read. Is it lost on us?
No, I just don't know. In this,
like the villainizing of the people, like they're the Reds.
I think the movie would be too slow for this culture. We're in the age of blockbuster, rush into special effects. This is a very thinking.
I don't know so.
I don't know if they come up with thinking movies.
I was sort of imagining what the modern remake would look like, and it wasn't hard for me to imagine what it would look like. Yeah, so. I think that it's ripe for a remake because they remake everything nowadays, and I'm just surprised when I looked that there wasn't a more modern version of it.
It's possible.
Do we all hate it from high school?
No.
No, I mean like as a...
I was not required to read it in high school.
Sexy about it.
I'm surprised. I mean, a lot of the books that they make us read in high school are completely lost on 15 and 16-year-olds. You're like, what the hell are they supposed to get out of it? Absolutely. So if I had read this back in the day, I would have, number one, been bored out of my mind.
That's the closest. I rarely finished reading. I tried to read.
I read Animal Farm.
I read that. Farm. That was
I love the comic. They actually did like a cartoon of Animal Farm. It was
great. Like that one. It's one of my favorite books of all time, but I got to choose that one. It was like a 1 of 3 that so it was my choice. So I finished that one.
I did read that one.
The Lord of the Flies I came close to finishing. I never finished the last chapter, but I liked that book a lot.
Lord of the Flies was required reading for those of us on the academic decathlon. Nerd alert. So I was part of the academic decathlon, and that was because it was still banned. It was back in the 80s. It was still kind of in some book. We actually had to get our permissions.
Was this book ever banned?
I was going to say, I thought this book was banned.
I was thinking about it this morning.
I'm sure at some point it was.
Yeah.
But we actually had to get a permission slip from our parents saying it was, even though I was a senior in high school, I still, as a minor, we had to have permission from our parents to read The Lord of the Flies.
Huh.
Because
a separate piece was one that I finished that I really liked. Same kind of thing, like British boys in boarding school. Yeah, no crash landing on a strange island.
Yeah, I don't know why they make us read those sort of things.
I don't know why they make us read either. You know that.
I mean, in general, but we have a podcast about books because we don't understand why we read.
I have a proposal, Karin. You were talking about the movie, and I was thinking, well, this is a book club, not a movie club, but maybe we should be having a movie club.
I mean, I do like movies, and that's a lot less of a time commitment.
And if
it's just a side note.
By the time this comes out, 1917 might not be in the theaters. I saw it today.
James saw it last night.
So good.
I opted to watch Little Women the second time instead.
I want to see both of those. I love Little Women.
They got this great build up. I will say the ending wasn't as satisfying for me. It was like, okay, and here it is. I was like, and I'm like, wait a minute,
smiling strangely looking up
there was no almost dead men. There were lots of almost dead people. No one was nursing them.
I think we should pick another.
Let's pick our next.
Let's see what we're going to talk about. Anne gets to pick.
I've added. Okay, but they're kind of crowded in there.
You know, I was thinking that we should probably just be adding books whenever.
Yeah,
we think there's a book.
I don't remember what I put in here because it was 2 months ago.
I kind of have because if you pick the one about the body thing, I changed my mind and I don't want that one in there. So I'm just. I figured
pick one.
But I want it in the thing.
Good.
I want it the way I want it.
See, but now
That
now
should be my
truly-
family crest. They'll all agree. That's how she is. She wants it the way she wants it.
Are we gonna pick one of mine yet? We have. Oh, this is. We haven't picked
We're
one.
going to school again, ladies.
No. Let's pick one of mine. Oh, okay. That was mine. That is mine. I just forgot the top.
I think it's the same time frame
Okay,
too.
if you don't want that one, we can.
I
choose
would
another
love
one.
something a little bit lighter for the next
Okay.
episode. Are you going to tell them what it is?
No, we're going to put it back in.
Okay, it's a mystery.
Okay,
I just
put-
wanted
put it
this
aside.
time.
Okay,
I
put it
did
aside.
offer that when we ventured into this, and you also bravely went with me. Okay, we are putting that back in because I do want to read it, but let's
I'd like something lighter.
pick something lighter.
I don't even remember what's in there.
Oh, this should be good. I don't know if it's lighter. This
Witches
is
of New York. I
Witches
don't
of
know
New
what that
York.
is.
mine.
Google it.
It's well recommended.
Okay.
I just want us to pick something that I recommended in there. There's a few in there.
We did. Wasn't this one?
No,
yours?
not that one. One of the other ones. I got about 5 in there now.
Well, so you should get to pick next because 2 of Katie's choices came up, and then we changed who picked. I think. Didn't you pull it out last time?
I think I pulled it out.
Yeah.
But
I
it
thought
wasn't
whoever's
my
book it
book
was got
choice.
to pick.
Yes,
But
but,
I could
then
be
we
wrong.
took your last choice from you.
Well, no, because I haven't had one of my books yet.
No,
Come
but
up.
you did get to pull.
I did.
Yeah. So you got to rig it next time.
I thought I did. I got about 5 choices in there, and still you picked something.
This is when statistics don't work.
Yes.
Yeah, the Witches of New York should be pretty
Sounds
good,
good.
I think.
I don't know what that is, but
If I had a phone, I would.
I'm
give
looking up
people
how
a
long it is
preview.
on Audible.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because I have been putting books aside, like looking for books, and then putting them into like an Amazon list for later. So I don't.
It's 14 hours.
That's like 2/3 of what my last offer was, and it's a new book. It's like newish, so
Okay.
it was written in the last decade, I think.
Yeah, I
A
can't
novel.
tell.
Oh, it's a series though.
2017.
But I think it's the start. It's the first of whatever it is, isn't it?
There's 2 books. There's 2 books. Are we doing both books in the series? It's kind of weird because some of the series start, and
Is this the first?
this is book 1.
So you'd hope it stands alone. Let's start with this one.
Okay.
Yeah, you could put the second one in if you like it, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll do that one
Okay.
too. Okay, The Witches of New York.
All right. Thanks for
Listen to it
listening.
or read it.
I hope that
I don't
our
see an
thoughts work
audiobook.
It's
Add
on there.
audio.
It
is, it
Like,
is.
wait a minute.
I only put things in that were audiobooks.
Gotta knit and read at the
Gotcha.
same time. Okay.
This time I was good. I read
There
some.
it is.
I listened some. But
No,
then I
I
got
just
desperate and listened.
At 3 times speed.
All right.
I should have-
Thanks for reading with us and
Thanks.
thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.